Today, Ghislaine Maxwell ambushed prosecutors by asking for a gag order on witnesses in her criminal trial involving Jeffrey Epstein. And last Wednesday, Trump stirred up controversy when he was asked about Maxwell at a White House press briefing. He then appeared to express support for Maxwell, saying, "I just wish her well, frankly." Today on the Tonic Accord, we will dive into these new revelations around Miss Maxwell, her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and why this case just continues to baffle everyone. Hey, everybody, and thank you for listening today on the Tonic Accord podcast. I'm Alex Kapitko, joined by my friend, co-host, and colleague, Drew. What is up, my friend?
What's up, guys? Hello, hello. This is fun. I'm excited to start doing a little bit of live streaming, a little bit of video content.
Yeah,
I actually have to wear a nice shirt for the first time in 6 months. So
yeah,
good stuff.
that was the big thing. That was the big thing here for me was that I shaved my head, I think, in April, and then I was looking in the mirror today, and I'm like, damn, I haven't let this hair get controlled at all since then. So maybe it's time for a haircut now that I actually have to see myself on the screen. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I've done the same thing. I've had a quarantine cut, and then now I think it's time for quarantine cut round two.
I think so. I think so. Yeah. But now, of course, it's kind of hard to get back to haircutting places again. So who knows? It's just going to be a cycle. Shave my head, grow it out, and yeah, it'll be fun. But, anyways, I think this is an interesting, just entire saga with Epstein, Maxwell. I mean, what we have Prince Andrew involved at this point. We have Trump and Clinton potentially. She's. I mean, Epstein was meeting with Bill Gates. I mean, this story just gets more and more confusing and more interesting to me.
Yeah.
But before we started, I just wanted to kind of go into a really good article that I read that was from New York Magazine, and it talks about kind of four wild theories on why he potentially made this money and what is kind of going on now in his post-death kind of controversy. So I was kind of interested to find that in the 1970s he dropped out of NYU's mathematical sciences school, but then right out of it he got a teaching job at teaching calculus at the Dalton School. And the interesting thing about this is that he was hired by the father of Attorney General William Barr. I mean, I don't think there's any relation, but it's always interesting to talk about. And his students included the son of Bear Stearns, who was Alan Greenberg. And it's interesting because then in 1976, he joined this company as a floor trader's assistant. But by 1981, he was out and he actually set up J. Epstein and Co. And according to New York Magazine about this time, I think it was about 2002, they said that what he would do is he would take a client's $1 billion and then he would charge a flat fee and then he would assume power of attorney to do whatever he thought was the best for his client. And kind of the interesting thing is that I guess say someone wanted to pay him 700 million or 800 million, he would always decline it. It had to be a billion or more. And so he was quite cold with kind of setting these parameters for how he wanted to do it. And so this is interesting. So in the 80s, when he started J. Epstein and Co., this is also when he became friends with Victoria's Secret's Les Wexner. And so this was about the same time that all of a sudden he leaves Bears Stearns as a floor trader assistant, and then all of a sudden he's starting his own company with a bunch of money. And so there's a lot of questions here. This guy kind of just seemed to kind of come out of nowhere, start his own company, and then was playing with billions of dollars with a lot of secrecy. And so I just really quickly wanted to say that they have four theories, and I think these are interesting. Maybe we'll probably come into them later on how he got all this money. And theory one is Ponzi scheme. And Business Insider has long pointed out that Jeffrey Epstein likely could have done a possible Bernie Madoff type of scheme. And I guess a lot of people that detract from this think that it would be an issue just because when he went to jail, it would be likely that this would have fallen through. But then at the same time, back in the 80s, one of his early employers in finance was Steve Hoffenberg, who was convicted of running one of the largest pre-Madoff Ponzi schemes in U.S. history. So Epstein was working around people who ended up committing these type of schemes. So, I mean, that's kind of why I think that's theory one. Then you have theory two, which is blackmail. And there's a girl named Virginia Roberts Jeffrey who claims that U.S. authorities were in possession of footage of him having sex with members of children and members of elite group. And so she says, in quotes, based on my knowledge of Epstein and this organization, as well as discussions with the FBI, it is my belief that federal prosecutors likely possess videotapes and photographic images of him having sex with underage girls.
Jesus.
And then there was, yeah, really nice, right? Really nice. And then there's theory 3, which I think you and I actually talked about parts of this last year. Alexandro Acosta, who was Trump's labor secretary, and he was being interviewed for the job. He actually said something quite disturbing. He was asked about why he didn't press Epstein more, because remember, he was the guy who basically gave Epstein a slap on the wrist back in 2007
Right.
when he was looking into this case. And he basically said that this was out of his pay grade. And he said he'd cut the non-prosecution deal with one of Epstein's attorneys because he had been told to back off and that Epstein was above his pay grade. So that's kind of sketchy. And then theory 4 is offshore money laundering and tax schemes. And so I would sum this up and say I think probably all of these could somewhat fit in with the things we have. Like, obviously, Drew, you and I do not know everything. I don't think anyone does except for maybe Epstein and Maxwell. But my theory is that there's a lot of kind of shady stuff going on here. And I think a lot of Americans and people around the world have this anti-elitist establishment right now. And I think a lot of people want to kind of blame elites and look to the elites as not being perfect, like maybe past generations have thought so. And so I think a lot of people are focused on this case because of that, because it's exposing kind of this upper echelon of dirty play. So I want to turn this over to you now. What are your thoughts? Sorry, that was a long intro, but I thought it was necessary.
Well, I think certainly it was a massive thing back in August, right, when he killed himself. Which I still think there's a lot of valid reason to doubt that. I'm usually more of the Occam's razor type, but with the whole video footage getting gone and the guards not watching him even though he's supposed to be watched, it looks really weird. But what happened was August goes by, the meme comes and dies, right? The whole Epstein didn't kill himself meme, you see it everywhere, blah blah blah. But then the world changed, right? Coronavirus happens. We're in the midst of a strange economic times, and then now the election's coming up in 2020. People's eyes turned elsewhere. Well, I think that now this Ghislaine Maxwell thing coming to light again is kind of rekindling that people's interests in what the hell happened, and considering Jeffrey Epstein is no longer. She's kind of the closest connection we have. She's kind of, people wanted answers back in August. People wanted to know what the hell was going on. Did he really have connections to past and present presidents? The Clintons, the Trumps, who knows who else, the royal family. It was all these things getting touted, and then boom, he's gone. He's dead. And we won't know for sure. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is in custody. And I think people's interest is peaked again, and there's this idea that maybe she'll talk, maybe she'll rat, if she survives. So I think that it's I don't want to belittle the seriousness of these crimes, but this is like TV level stuff, where you have this immense conspiracy, then the guy kills himself in jail, and now you have another one that's like in custody. And when she first got in custody, they even said, "Oh, she might have coronavirus," and people were like, "Here we go again," right? So, I think just by the media coverage and people's interest, it's understandable that people are so engaged and involved in this, and it's so speculatory, right? People are going with all kinds of conspiracies, but like you said, people don't really know where Jeffrey Epstein got his billions of dollars. And we do see all these pictures with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein hanging out with Prince Andrew and hanging out with Trump and hanging out with the Clintons. And you're like, what? What is going on? So I do understand why this is such an interesting case. It is tough because I usually am that guy to be like, I really want to get hard evidence. A picture doesn't mean anything, right? Especially someone at that level of fame and power. I'm sure that Trump has taken pictures with hundreds of thousands of people that he actually doesn't really know that well. But it's still weird. It's still weird that they all kind of name each other. So I think on this case, as far as Ghislaine Maxwell, one, it'd be really interesting to see how they handle her incarceration. She was set on a $5 million bond, and she was considered a flight risk, which her lawyers tried to fight. I think that's legitimate. If you have someone that is so well traveled and has so many connections, I think yeah. I think you and the charges are connection to a pedophile ring. I think yeah, they're a flight risk, because I really don't want someone with this many connections and answers to just disappear into the earth, off into whatever Southeast Asia or whatever. And it's just strange that she had started doing stuff like changing her phones, changing her address. And her claim was to avoid media attention. That's probably half true. I don't doubt that that's true. But I also think she was trying to get off the grid and avoid prosecutors as well, because it was the FBI that was basically tracking her movements. So I don't know, man. I really hope that we start to get answers. I really hope that she is a complete rat, does a full 6ix9ine, and just, lays out all the names, because I would like some answers, because I also think that it's also good for people to get answers so that we don't get too conspiratorial. You know what I mean? Because I want to know who was involved in this, but I also think it's good to know who wasn't involved. If we can start ruling out, because the problem is we don't have any answers, and everyone keeps saying, there is a worldwide elite-run pedophile ring, and anyone can be involved. And that's so dangerous to just start saying anyone can be involved. Those are serious accusations that we do need to take seriously, but we really need to pin down who is involved, and I hope she can do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely want to respond, but first I actually just kind of want to get into the meat of what the allegations are against Maxwell herself.
Yeah.
Just so we can kind of make it clear that this is no pun intended, no child's play here. Like, she is charged with six counts, including perjury and enticing a minor to travel to engage in illegal, illicit sexual acts. And according to the allegations that are being brought forward, she befriended victims and established a rapport with them. She would normalize sexual abuse by undressing in front of them or talking about sexual topics. So what I'm kind of getting out of this is that she was kind of Epstein's right-hand woman. Like, she was kind of the one to maybe, at least if I'm getting this right, it sounds like she was kind of the one who made the girls feel more relaxed and comfortable and maybe able to do things that they really should not be doing and he shouldn't be forcing them to do. And it's really disturbing stuff. And I mean, there's accounts coming out from multiple women from 1994, I'm seeing 97, even into the early 2000s, and girls as young as 14. So I mean, it's really messed up stuff. And she was a British socialite, and I don't really know how they met, but it kind of sounds like she's always been kind of along with him since these allegations have come out against Epstein and now her. And yeah, man, I mean, I don't think either one of us are really conspiratorial types, but to me, there's just a lot of moving pieces that kind of do scream something's not right, or at least something doesn't meet the eye like we're thinking. And I mean, her and Epstein alone have been connected with people like George Soros, Donald Trump, the Clintons, Prince Andrew, and like, there's some weird stuff. I mean, Prince Andrew, I guess, went to Epstein's house days after Epstein was accused of these charges, and he said that he just felt safe there. I mean, this is a guy who was really close with Epstein, along with, Bill Gates. I mean, even after Epstein was convicted, Bill Gates was still seen flying around with him. And now, I'm not saying it's nefarious play just right off the bat, but this was a powerful man with a lot of money. So obviously, you're going to have powerful people around him that either want money or influence, right? But I mean, you can't tell me that one of these people wasn't up to something with him. I mean, to me, there's just so many moving parts that don't make sense. And I'm worried now. Now, I also have another theory, going to Trump, saying, I wish her well. And, back in 2015, he had very different things to say about Epstein and Prince Andrew specifically, but now he's wishing them well. And I have a little bit of concern that she knows something about people like Clinton and Trump and maybe other powerful people inside of the U.S. government. And when I heard Trump say, I wish her well, to me it sounded like maybe if he gets reelected, he's saying, hey, I'll cover for you. Maybe I'll get you protected for this. And I think it is interesting because we haven't seen a lot of Congress in general talk about this. And it does make you wonder how high this goes. And like I said, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial. I'm just trying to create a discussion here. But to me, it sounds like Trump would maybe protect her if he was reelected. That's what I got out of that. I'm curious your thoughts on that, but I agree. This is complicated, and she really seems to be the last one who maybe could talk.
Yeah, until we start getting to like the clients, right? Like she's kind of the last that's on the supply side. I mean, again, she's charged with counts of eliciting, sex trafficking, basically. So yeah, you're right. Back to you said, like it's like the good cop, bad cop. She was the good cop to try and lure people in. Like, oh, you're gonna meet powerful people. It'll be fine. You're just going to a party, and then later on, they find out it's not just a party with Prince Andrew. It's sex trafficking. So, but as far as what Trump said, I think we should watch it. One, this is an opportunity to start using the new media we're diving into. We are, for those that don't know, we are now live streaming on Twitch. We have webcams, and we're going to be utilizing, like, we want to be able to look at and view, interviews and things in real time, and then we can react to them. So I say we take a look, because he also says something else about how he's not that well informed on the situation, which I find hard to believe.
Right.
I'm wondering, do you feel that
Let's go to the film.
powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well, whatever it is. I don't know the situation with Prince Andrew. Just don't know. Not aware of it.
So, look, again, knowing, like, being neighbors with someone. So he says, oh, I know her from when we lived together in Palm Beach. Yeah, that's innocuous. That doesn't mean anything. People can live next to murderers and have no idea for decades, right? So that's fair. That's fair. But to say that he doesn't know the situation is weird, because everyone knows the situation. It's one of the biggest stories, and has been since August of last year, that, Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are involved in this pedophile ring and this island and the grooming of girls, and their connection to powerful people. It's funny that Trump is always so willing to be like, everybody says, everybody knows. And yet, for something that really is everyone's talking about and everyone knows about, he says, oh, I don't know the situation. That's weird. And to wish someone well that has 6 counts of perjury and sex trafficking is strange. And then also to say, I don't know the Prince Andrew situation. You had mentioned this earlier, that 5 years ago in 2015 in an interview, he actually implies that he does know. So I want to take a look at that as well. As if in Bloomberg Politics, they're actually talking about what's even weirder is we're getting into this conversation like halfway through. They're actually talking about Clinton's chances of running for president, Hillary Clinton, and her connection with Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein in 2015. And this is what Trump has to say. So let's take a look at this as well.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it.
Cesspool.
The island was an absolute cesspool.
Yeah.
So, and he's been there for many times. Well, I can't say friends, but I know
friendly. You know them.
they play at my clubs a lot. I have clubs, and everybody likes to play at my clubs.
Are you saying there's a political problem for her if she runs for president?
It could be a political problem. Look, he could be a political problem. Right now, he's Teflon, and right now, maybe not.
So there's a little bit of weird going on at the end where he talks about the political problems and stuff, but I think he's talking about Clinton's connections to these people. And he says, and he's talking about Jeffrey Epstein's islands, that the infamous island now, where he flew to. And he says, ask Prince Andrew about it. He'll tell you. And he even like smirks, he even says like, ask Prince Andrew. And he like stops for a second. Very strange to see that flip in the last 5 years. And I have go to ask Prince Andrew about it to now I have no idea about the situation. So is that, can we make the claim off of that Trump is directly involved? You still can't make that claim. But you can make the claim that he certainly knows something about it. He certainly has been around that environment at least to know something about it, because he admitted, oh, well, ask Prince Andrew about it. If he's saying ask Prince Andrew about it, that means he also knows something about it. So I don't know, man. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say, before I forget, I feel like with Trump, there's always a trend is that if he doesn't know anything about a topic, he blabs on about it and talks out of his ass about it. But when he knows too much about something, he shuts up. And I get the feeling again about this that's just kind of characteristic of Trump, is that he's just not going to say anything about it. He's going to zip his lips. He's going to plead the fifth. He's going to say he knows nothing about it,
Yeah. Well, certainly, I mean, that's what every lawyer would suggest, is to not say anything at all ever always plead the fifth if you're even remotely involved in something like this. And unless you have good information, you're trying to help the authorities. But if you're at any kind of risk, I think his lawyers are probably telling him to shut the hell up. They probably tell him, say you don't know what's going on. I don't know. I mean, and again, it's just so weird. It does make me concerned though that like if there is a massive ring like this that's been going on for decades that has eluded the authorities and has been shut down, right? Like even when they get close, we got Epstein in jail, he's gone. That is really worrisome, and it kind of reminds me that like how many people live above the law, how many people live just so far above the law where things like this can just happen, and we're supposed to just believe it or supposed to just ignore it. I don't know, man. I really hope that we get some answers from Ghislaine. But I do want to address some of the crazier conspiracy theories that are coming out of this. One that I didn't even realize was a thing until the other day is people think Dr. Fauci is married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister. And the AP, as well as many others, have confirmed that he's not married to Ghislaine's sister. But I saw like...
Thank God.
Yeah, I saw like conspiracy theory memes about this, and I was like, what? Like, is this a joke? I have to imagine it was a joke, and it just caught on by like people that are just way too far down the rabbit hole, because there's this whole thing now that they're implying that Dr. Fauci is out some power hungry man trying to destroy America, which is ridiculous in my opinion. And so now they're trying to connect him to Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of in the golden era of conspiracy theories. I mean, it to me, seeing Bill Gates, Fauci, and Epstein and Maxwell kind of all put together into a conspiracy sandwich, kind of a marble rye sandwich of conspiracies, really doesn't blow my mind at all. Just because it's, like I kind of said earlier, I feel like currently our culture inherently doesn't like the establishment. We don't like the elites, and everyone's always kind of looking for a criticism of the elites, especially, I mean, we've seen it with coronavirus against Fauci. Not everyone, but people are saying Bill Gates, is trying to get a vaccine because he wants to get more wealth, or he wants to control the population. I mean, people just are hesitant about elitism and the elites, and I see just a big mashup coming here. But some of these conspiracies like that, I feel like kind of take away from the point that there are some strange ass things going on here, and like for me, the conspiracy that I thought was interesting, and I don't want to say funny because just none of this is really funny, but the Wayfair, which is basically a high-end furniture company.
Mm-hmm.
The internet has been all up in arms with a conspiracy theory this month that this online furniture store is involved with child sex trafficking. I guess there's alleged photos of Epstein with their CEO, though apparently it's actually not the CEO, or he wasn't the CEO at the time. And people's main argument is that the high prices of items like pillows and dressers, because they are secretly named after some kids that have been victims of child trafficking, and I'm just making this up, but say there's like a collection of mattresses named Alex, and I guess they're saying that there was a kid once kidnapped named Alex, so somehow these go together. And people are really reaching on this one, I think. And even what's her name, Bridget Carr, who is a professor of law at the University of Michigan, has come out and said, don't believe stuff like this, it's distracting from actual child trafficking problems.
Right.
And I can definitely understand that. I mean, I think most people have debunked this one, but it shows you everyone's confused, and I do get it. But I think if you're Maxwell, you'd be or Epstein from heaven, you'd be glad to, or probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's not in heaven. That guy's not in heaven, man. No.
How dare I say otherwise too? But he'd probably love to see some of these conspiracies because they're really detracting.
See, it just shows that we have to be really careful, right, when we deal with stuff like this, because there are serious things that we do need to get to the bottom of and have answers to. And a conspiracy, like conspiracies exist. A conspiracy is like people conspiring to, prevent information or misinformation. I'm pretty damn sure that those involved in pedophile rings are conspiring to conceal that information. So, that's a real conspiracy. But like the Wayfair thing, it does go show we have to be careful about what rabbit hole we go down. And there's been plenty of studies about the human brain and our psychology that says like we try and find patterns that aren't necessarily there. You know what I mean? It's why people were, I wore a different jersey and my sports team won, right? That's innocuous. That's no big deal. But some people really believe that stuff. Or even like imagery, right? Late at night in your dark in your room, you see what you think looks like a freaking person, and you're like, oh wait, no, that's my coat hanger on a chair. But it's because our brains are wired to try and make these connections. Our brains are constantly trying to see patterns in the randomness of existence. And so something like this, right, where it's like, oh, they named like a Victorian wicker chair had the same name as a girl that was kidnapped in England, Victorian England, 3 years. It's like, there's so like it's. I see how we're trying to make the connections, but it's such a stretch. Now, if there's hard evidence that this furniture company is involved, I'll believe it. But I can't go off of the naming conventions of expensive pillows to then go to the conclusion that yes, they're engaged in a child pedophile ring. That's just such a huge leap, and that's why it's like, I think the theme of this episode is, how do we approach things that are real conspiracies without going down rabbit holes that lead us astray?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, I think you and I talked about this back when we talked about Occam's razor, right?
Yeah.
And kind of the idea of the proportionality bias, but, which is our tendency to assume that big events have big causes, right? And so, I get it. The world's a complicated place, and it makes you feel better to know that big things have big causes. I get it. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure there's things you believe like that too. But the weird thing is on this Epstein one is that this almost does seem like kind of an anti-proportionality bias, where there are a lot of big things going on here, right? And even if Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself, which I've read enough evidence, at least in my opinion, that I don't think he did.
Yeah.
Or even if he did, I think there was maybe someone turned off the security cameras, or maybe didn't check on the room when there was a struggle. I think either way, there was definitely something nefarious there. And so that's why I say maybe this is one of the ones that disproves parts of the proportionality bias, where I just think there's too many big factors here. And especially because it's not just, average Joes doing shady stuff. I mean, like for me, probably one of the biggest things is the amount of people that have turned an eye to all this. I mean, there's reports of when Epstein showed up to the Virgin Islands, where his island is. I mean, customs and just, like border patrols and the police would kind of turn the other way. And I guess there's reports of him showing up with like 5 or 6 underage girls, and people just turned the other way and said, hello, nice to see you again, welcome. And obviously this is a man with a lot of money, but it's kind of disturbing to me. And so that's why I do understand why people are letting their minds get carried away with this. And I've seen so many memes now, like you were saying, oh, Maxwell's going to die now. Don't let her go to jail. Don't let her get COVID. Maybe, and I do get it, and I was interested to know too that Alan Dershowitz, Trump's impeachment attorney, he's defended Weinstein, I think O.J. Simpson as well. He also has defended Maxwell recently, because he also was involved with working with both Epstein and Maxwell, and he has also wished her well. So, this could be me just trying to put pieces together again, but this is a contrarian. This is a guy who's a very good defense attorney, and he does defend some quite shady people. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just remember seeing a funny interview with Alan Dershowitz, because he went to Epstein's island and stuff, and he said, well, I got massages, but I kept my boxers on. And he was on like national TV, like on CNN, saying, yeah, I got massages on Epstein's island, but I had my boxers on. And you're like, dude, what are you doing, man? That guy, I don't know. If there's one person I don't want to be associated with, it's Jeffrey Epstein, but the second person is probably Alan Dershowitz. I mean, because that guy's house is a den of thieves, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dershowitz is interesting, and we could go into that probably a later time. But I mean, I think he's one of those guys who truly believes in criminal defense, and maybe he's not always an actual defender of these causes, but he really does take some cases where I'm like, come on, man, like, do you really think you're going to get out of this with a good look, or these people being found innocent? But
He gets out.
I mean, he's a lawyer. I'm not.
He gets out. He gets out with it. He gets out with it with a big bag of money. Is my guess. I mean, let's be real. We all know his name, and he gets paid a lot.
Yeah, I wanna give you my theory now and see if you can find any holes in it, or see what you think about it. Like, part of me thinks that basically what's happened is, so there's a lot of reports that say that the island has cameras, right? He had cameras everywhere, from the bathroom to the sofa to the kitchen. You pretty much didn't go anywhere on that island without being recorded. And so I could imagine that he brings someone over, like, say, Prince Andrew, or you're just saying people, but Bill Clinton or Donald Trump, gets them a little bit tipsy, films the prince with an underage girl, for example, and then holds the tape over his head in order to get money. Like, I just could see that as a form of blackmail that he's been able to then profit largely, because obviously he's only dealing with multi-millionaires and billionaires, and to me it sounds like a pretty efficient way. Blackmail elites and kind of have just a circle of that going around. Maxwell brings in new people and you take the money out of them. I don't know.
I think 100%. I think, well, not 100%, obviously, but I think that's highly plausible. I think it's a pretty well-known tactic. I mean, blackmail. We all know what blackmail is. Blackmail happens at the lowest of levels, right? Yeah, give me some money, or I'll release some nudes of some celebrity. Or it happens at the highest levels of government. I mean, it was known that the KGB would do that to keep periphery leaders in Soviet states in line. Is, they invite them to Moscow. They do exactly what you said. Invite them to Moscow, basically allow the guy to cheat on his wife, be with the underage girl, or do whatever, and then be like, hey, we don't want this getting out, right? So play ball. There have been many governments that have known to do that. You do that with diplomats, etc. I'm sure that a sketchy, shady, pedophile ring running billionaire guy he knew that what he was doing was considered absolutely disgusting by society and would land him in jail. And so I'm sure that he's like, well, I'll make sure that I have some measures of security, which is what you said, filming everything. Why would he have all those cameras? I mean, he's a sick bastard anyway, so I'm sure there's multiple reasons, but I do think that's one of the reasons is, you have dirt on everyone. I mean, what do you think Donald Trump was talking about when he said, hey, ask Prince Andrew? That was basically a smirk of like, yeah, he's got dirt on that guy. Like, that's almost obvious. I think that's highly plausible. And that's why I think I agree with you. I think he got killed. I think he was murdered in jail. Looking at the circumstances of his suicide is so weird. I think it's pretty much that is what it is he had all this dirt on so many people as a form of security, but and it worked for a while. I mean, he got a slap on the wrist even when he got caught. He only had to go to jail one day for like 5 hours. It was basically like, it was like going to the DMV or something. So he got a slap on the wrist. Well, eventually it caught up with him, and when he got more than a slap on the wrist, he figured, okay, well, people were worried he would talk and release some of his blackmail as evidence or whatever, and he got whacked. I mean, we all know the mob does this all the time. If you're a risk of talking, you get whacked. It's like, it's been, it's not just in the movies. The movies are inspired by real life events. I can totally see this being the case.
Yeah, and I mean, I like how you mentioned the mob, because I mean, that's what politics and kind of this, elite establishment, it's kind of a globalist establishment in some ways is. It's the mob, but instead of guns, they have money, they have money and cameras. Money
and cameras, and all the more power than we can imagine. Now here, I do want to say, before we do kind of wrap up this segment of the podcast, is the political aspect of it, because you have a lot of people on the left saying, oh, they're connected to Donald Trump, and you have a lot of people on the right saying they're connected to the Clintons. I say, wherever this rabbit hole does lead us, if we start to get some answers, take all the bastards down. If it leads us to the Clintons, then it leads us to the Clintons. If it leads us to the Trumps, then it leads us to the Trumps. And they needed to see justice. I don't want to bifurcate justice based on party. Wherever this rabbit hole goes, take these sick bastards down. I don't care if it's a D or an R by their name. I don't care. I don't want to defame his name, but it could be, it could be Mr. Rogers. It could be the most lovable person, but if they're involved in this, then they have to go down. They have to be, their legacy has to be torn down, and they need to see justice. I just want to make that clear because I just see a lot of, like everything, politicization of some of these things. And it's like, dude, we can't play for a team. You know, if this is like an elite run pedophile ring, the good people of the world are the victims, okay? Not one party. So we have to remember that and just take all these sick bastards down if we can. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the key of it, is this might be the most bipartisan issue since, I don't know, like breathing, I don't know. But but it's true. And I think like you said, I mean, I think that's why we're not hearing a lot of outcry from either side. I think there's a lot of bad people on both sides in this one. And I mean, I don't have the source on me, but I remember hearing, so I'll take this as kind of a opinion side of it. But I do remember when they were looking into, what was his name, Weiner? I forget his first name. The guy that sent some
Henry. I think it was Henry Weiner.
Great name. But I guess when they were going through his computer, they had found some connections as well to this. I mean, we have, potentially Trump, Soros, Clinton. I mean, yeah, this is a bipartisan problem, and I think it just shows that you could have a D or an R or an independent next to your name, and it still doesn't mean you're good. It still means you could be corrupt, and it still means that maybe you're at your position because you want to take advantage of that position. The same way we see, in my opinion, these Catholic priests take advantage of altar boys and young boys, I think it could be very similar in politics, where you have high-profile people who know they can get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Depressing, but you hit the nail on the head. Hey, Alex, you there? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we had a weird cutout there.
Hey, but at least we had a good ending point. We'll probably have to just edit that last part out. But that's probably where we should end the first episode. Yeah, certainly depressing, but well said. I really do hope we find some answers. I hope she doesn't get whacked and then the ties are just cut off. Like I really hope we figure out some answers, because it's depressing but interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you guys as always for listening to this one. I guess you can find us here on lots of things now. I mean,
Podbean, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Apple Podcasts. Yep. Yeah, so definitely keep an eye out. We're going to be trying out some new things with content, various reaction videos, live streams. It should be fun. We want to have a lot more interaction. I saw we had a comment that in our Twitch chat from this last episode about, are they live streaming the protests? I can't answer that. I don't know if there's someone live streaming the protests right now.
I'm sure there is.
But but to kind of transition, we are going to start talking about the protests. And yeah, we can get into that. Let me